Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little subscribe button at the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, click that subscribe button. Really does help our channel grow, our audience grow, and I really do appreciate it more than you know. So click that subscribe button. Appreciate your support. Now, here's the video that you came here for. Because the number one player on my portal big board was a kid by the name of AJ Storr. Averaged 17 points per game, almost 18 points per game this year at Wisconsin. And AJ Storr entered the portal. And I'll be blunt, we actually talked about him a little bit on whatever day it was on Wednesday's show. Kentucky fan Casey asked me, who is your dream recruiting class if you're the Kentucky head coach? Even though I did not think Mark Pope would pursue him, I did have AJ Storr in there because, in my opinion, he is the best player in the portal. Well, I bring it up because since he entered the portal, he did declare for the draft, but all indications were that Kansas was going to be the team. Interesting to note a couple things. One, there was a report, and it's just a report. I'm not saying it's true, but that Kansas offered him some sort of crazy amount of money, and he's like, nah, I'm good. And he basically was like, I'm worth more. And so I don't know what Bill Self had to do to lock this down. Now, the other report is that he has a girlfriend, or I think it's a girlfriend. I don't want to, get into his personal life, but the report was that there's a girlfriend that enrolled at Kansas. And once she ended up at Kansas, it was like, okay, it's a wrap. He's going to Kansas. But either way, on Thursday afternoon, AJ Storr, the number one player in the transfer portal, committed to Kansas. Let me just say this. Bill Self, my dog, Bill Self is a fearless MFer. And excuse my language, I mean, I guess I didn't swear there, but he is a fearless MFer. And what this goes back to me, and we've talked about it this offseason, Bill Self said the day that they lost in the NCAA tournament to Gonzaga, what did he say? We all remember the quote. He said, honestly, this is a little bit disappointing, but we've already been preparing for next season for a month now. I don't think Bill Self was lying. Because right now, if we were handing out a portal king for 2024, right now, Bill Self is, it's like Secretariat in that one race. What was it, the Belmont Stakes, where Bill Self is like 30 laps ahead. I guess that's probably what happens when you get a 2-month head start on everybody else. But first off, a couple things. One, when he said that, I thought it really spoke to where Kansas was this year. And you know what's funny? If you are a listener of this show, if you have listened regularly to this show, we at a certain point just kind of stopped talking about Kansas because I kept saying they would win one game, 2 games, and everybody in the media would be, oh, trust Bill Self, trust Kansas. And then and then they lose a weird one. And at some point I just kept saying, like, it's over. They're not figuring it out. This isn't the year for Kansas. Now, in Bill Self's defense, a couple things worked against him. McCullough could never stay healthy. I think Bill Self was even frustrated with that by the end of the year. Obviously, there was a McDonald's All-American named Arterio Morris that got into legal trouble and was kicked out of school. Now, he has since been cleared, I believe, or the charges were dropped, I believe. But, I mean, you're talking about a star player who can't stay healthy. You're talking about a McDonald's All-American that was going to be your 6th man. And so I just bring it up because Bill Self was clearly shorthanded this past year, and he's clearly like, I ain't dealing with that ever again. And so what does he do? Week after the portal opens, Riley Kugel, the guard from Florida, was their 6th man, 9.5 points per game. But listen, he's got NBA size, NBA upside, NBA athleticism. He commits to Kansas. I think that's a kid that in the right system can thrive. Now, he's got to do it, but to me, he is an elite talent that has yet to put together. The guy that I love, and we talked about him a few weeks ago, Zeke Mayo. That was the kid that was at South Dakota State. He's from Lawrence, Kansas originally, and committed to South Dakota State, was the player of the year in the Summit League at South Dakota State. Decides to enter the portal. I remember talking about him during the NCAA tournament. I said, if this kid enters the portal, he is going to be as coveted as anybody. Well, he averaged 19 points, 5 rebounds, 3.5 assists, 39%. He can play on the ball. He can play off the ball. He is really good. He commits to Kansas. AJ Storr, though, is the cream of the crop. As I said, 6'6" wing, started his career 2 years ago at St. John's. That last year pre-Patino. really good as a freshman at St. John's. I remember when Patino took over, I had buddies that are St. John's fans like, Torres, can we keep him? Can we retain him? Is Patino going to keep him? I said, I don't know, but whoever gets him is going to be really, really lucky. Well, he goes to Wisconsin, and I'll be honest, like he frankly, let's call a spade a spade. He really did some things at Wisconsin. He was the kind of player, Wisconsin really hasn't had that kind of player in forever. They've had really good teams, but he's got NBA size, NBA length, 6'7", super athletic, and as I said, 17 points per game this season in the Big Ten. Worth noting, played his best basketball late. 3 of his final 4 games at Wisconsin, 20-plus points. 30 points against Northwestern in the Big Ten tournament. 20 points against Purdue in that win in the Big Ten tournament. 24 points in the Big Ten championship game against Illinois. Really good player. Now he goes to Kansas, and I'll tell you what, probably next Sunday show, maybe next week, I'll do an updated way too early top 25, which we haven't even talked about. Right now, I got to have Kansas at number 1. Last year, I thought they were a little bit overrated. I didn't like the personnel as much as everybody else did. You can go back and look. I had them 3, 4, 5. I didn't love the personnel. But you look at this year, and by the way, I think they're done with recruiting. Now, they may, you know how this goes. They a kid may leave if need be. But at the same time, assuming that the roster is mostly done, they're going to be stacked. Again, now we'll see. Johnny Furphy declared the other day is leaving his options open. He might not have a spot to come back to because you look, DeJuan Harris, multi-year starter at point guard, can come back. He's expected back. You have Zeke Mayo, who I think can play on the ball, can play off the ball, maybe a 6-man, 2-guard type role. Riley Kugel, NBA talent. And AJ Storr is a stud to go along with Hunter Dickinson. And so listen, does it all click? We'll find out. Does it get figured out? We'll find out. Nothing is guaranteed. But Bill Self, listen, I think he felt like he was playing with a little bit of a deck stacked against him this year. Not enough depth, an injured star. He was like, I ain't messing around this time around. By the way, I think they actually might not be done. I've heard some reports that Rylan Griffin, the 2-guard from Alabama, has actually been leaning towards Kansas. We'll see if that ends up happening as well. But you talk about the number 1 player in the portal, in my opinion, AJ Storr commits to Kansas. And when I do my updated top 25, Kansas will be number 1.